The envoy slammed his glass down so hard the wine jumped over the rim and bled across the white tablecloth. Matteo Lombardi did not flinch. He sat at the head of the long table in his own dining hall, hands folded, watching the man who had come into his house to threaten him. "You have 3 days," the envoy said. "Marry the Farron girl, or my family walks away and your enemies smell the crack in the door. You need this alliance more than you want to admit." Matteo's men lined the walls, still as statues, their eyes moving between the two of them. The air felt tight, like the moment before a storm breaks. Nora Bellini stood near the doorway with a tray in her hands, and she had learned over 2 years in this house exactly how to disappear. She kept her eyes down. She kept her breathing slow. She was a maid, and maids were furniture, and furniture did not listen. But she was listening. She had heard everything. "You mistake my patience for weakness," Matteo said. His voice was quiet, which was worse than shouting. "I decide who I marry, not you, not your family." "Then you decide to lose." The envoy leaned back. "The Farron name protects the eastern roads. Without it, everything you move gets stopped, searched, taken. You know this. Your father knew this before you. The only reason we sit here at all is because your father made a promise and now you must keep it. A wife by the end of the week or the deal dies and you die slow after it." Matteo stood. The chair scraped back. Every man in the room straightened. Nora saw his hand move to his jacket, and she thought for one cold second that he was reaching for a weapon. Instead, he pulled something small from his inside pocket. It caught the light. A ring. Heavy gold, dark with age, carved with the old family mark that hung above every door in the house. She had dusted that mark 1,000 times. She knew what it meant. Only one woman was ever allowed to wear that ring, and that woman was the wife of the head of the Lombardi family. "You want a wife," Matteo said. "You want it announced. You want it real, fine." He turned. His eyes swept the room, past his men, past the envoy, and landed on the one person who was supposed to be invisible. He looked at Nora. "You," he said, "come here." The tray shook in her hands. She set it down carefully on the sideboard so it would not fall. She could feel every eye in the room swing to her, feel the weight of their surprise like a physical push. A maid. He was looking at a maid. "Put on the ring," Matteo said. He held it out across the table. "Wear it. Stand beside me. You are my wife now as far as this room is concerned, and this man will carry that news back to whoever sent him." The silence that followed had teeth. The envoy laughed, once sharp and ugly. "A servant. You would insult my family with a servant." "I would insult you with anyone I choose," Matteo said. "Nora, the ring." She walked forward. Her legs carried her without her permission, one step and then another, across a floor she had scrubbed on her knees more times than she could count. She reached the head of the table. The ring sat in his open palm, and it was the most valuable thing she had ever been close to, and every part of her training told her to take it, to bow her head, to obey. She looked up at him instead. "No," she said. The word dropped into the room and broke it open. Matteo's expression did not change, but something moved behind his eyes, some flicker of a thing he was not used to feeling. His men shifted their weight. The envoy's smile froze halfway. "What did you say?" Matteo asked. "I said no." Nora's voice was steady, and she was as surprised by that as anyone. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice held. "I will not put on that ring. You understand who I am." "I understand exactly who you are." She held his gaze. "And I will wear it, and I will stand beside you, and I will tell this man whatever you want me to tell him. But I will do it only when you stop lying about why you need me to." The room went so quiet she could hear the clock on the wall. Matteo's jaw tightened. "Lying. You know what I mean." She did not blink. "You know exactly what I mean. So does at least one other person in this house. And I am not going to put that ring on my hand and walk into something with my eyes shut, not for you, not for anyone." The envoy looked between them, his confidence cracking now, because a servant who spoke like this was not a servant, and a servant who knew a secret was a loose thread that could unravel everything. "What is she talking about?" he demanded. "Lombardi. What does she know?" Matteo closed his hand around the ring. "Get out," he said to the envoy. "You said 3 days. You have your 3 days. Now get out of my house before I change my mind about letting you leave it at all." The envoy stood, straightened his coat with hands that were not quite steady, and looked at Nora one last time with an expression she did not like, an expression that measured her and filed her away for later. Then 2 of Matteo's men walked him to the door, and the heavy sound of it closing rolled back through the hall. Matteo turned to the rest of his men. "Out, all of you." They went, slowly glancing back, but they went, until the great room held only the 2 of them and the spilled wine drying dark on the white cloth. Matteo set the ring down on the table between them. He looked at it, then at her. 2 years, he said. 2 years you have worked in my house and never said a word above a whisper, and now you tell me no in front of my men and an enemy's envoy. He shook his head slowly. Either you are very brave or very foolish. I have not decided which. Maybe both, Nora said. Something that was almost a smile touched the corner of his mouth and vanished. Sit down. She did not sit. I would rather stand. Sit down, Nora. You have already said the dangerous thing. The dangerous part is over. Now we talk. She pulled out a chair and sat, but she kept her back straight and her hands in her lap, and she did not touch the ring. Tell me what you think you heard, Matteo said. I don't think. I know, she met his eyes. This marriage the envoy wants isn't an alliance. It's a way in. The Farron family doesn't want to protect your roads. They want to put one of their own inside these walls, close to you, close enough. A wife has access to everything. A wife stands beside you when your guard is down. On the wedding night, when the house is full of guests and celebration and no one is watching the doors, that is when they mean to move against you. The marriage is the door, and the bride is the key, and you would be the one to invite them in. Matteo was very still. I heard the envoy's man in the corridor, she went on. 2 weeks ago. They didn't know I was there. Servants aren't there, are they? We don't count. But I heard him say the wedding was the only opening they would get, and that everything depended on getting their girl close to you before you understood what she was. She lifted her chin. So when you held out that ring and told me to wear it and be your wife, I knew you already understood. You weren't marrying the Farron girl. You were replacing her. You wanted a bride who couldn't be their weapon, and you looked around the room and picked the nearest one you could control. For a long moment he said nothing. You are wrong about one thing, he said finally. Which thing? I did not pick you because I could control you. He almost laughed. I have just spent 5 minutes learning I cannot control you at all. I picked you because you are the only person in this house whose name is on no one's list. No family. No history anyone can trace. No one watching you because no one thinks you matter. If I put an enemy's daughter on my arm, I put a knife at my own throat. If I put a stranger from another family, I create 3 new problems. But a maid with no ties, he spread his hands. No one plans around a maid. Because a maid doesn't count, Nora said quietly. Because a maid is safe, Matteo corrected. There is a difference. Not to the maid. He studied her, and she let him, because she had spent 2 years being looked past, and it was strange and almost frightening to finally be looked at. Why are you not afraid of me? He asked. It was a real question. She could hear that it cost him something to ask it. Everyone in this house is afraid of me. My men are afraid of me. That envoy pretended not to be, but his hands shook. And you sit there and tell me no as if I am a shopkeeper who gave you the wrong change. Nora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I have already lost everything a person can lose. When you have nothing left to take, the people who take things stop being frightening. That is all. It isn't courage. It is just what's left when the fear burns out. He did not ask what she had lost. She was grateful for that. "Here is what I am offering," Matteo said. "You wear the ring. In public, in front of anyone who might carry word back to the Farron family, you are my wife. You stand where I tell you to stand, and you smile when I tell you to smile. In return, you are no longer a maid. You have a room, protection, money, a life better than the one you have now. And when this is finished, when the threat is gone, you keep the money and you go free, and no one ever troubles you again. And in private you are whatever you want to be. I will not touch you. I will not ask anything of you that a business partner would not ask. This is an arrangement, not a marriage." Nora looked at the ring on the table. It was beautiful and it was heavy, and it was a trap in the shape of a treasure. "I have conditions," she said. His eyebrows rose. "You are in a strong position to make demands, I see. I overheard a plot that could end your life. I could walk out that door and sell what I know to the Farron family for enough to disappear forever." She held his gaze. "So yes, I am in a strong position, and I have conditions." The almost smile returned and stayed a little longer this time. "Name them." "First, you tell me the truth, always. If I am walking into danger for you, I walk in with my eyes open. No more lies, no more half things, no more treating me like furniture that happens to have a mouth. If you cannot tell me something, you say so. You do not lie to me." "Agreed." "Second, when this is finished, I leave clean. No debt, no strings, no one following me to make sure I stay quiet. I keep what I know, and you trust that I will keep it, because I will have earned that trust and so will you." "Agreed." "Third," she paused, this was the one that mattered. "You do not decide for me, not what I wear, not what I say, not who I am. You ask me to play a part. I will play it well, better than any Farron girl ever could, because I am not doing it out of duty or fear. I am doing it because I chose to. But the moment you forget that I chose, the moment you start treating me like something you own, I stop. Do you understand?" Matteo looked at her for a long time. "You are the strangest woman I have ever met," he said. "Is that a yes?" He picked up the ring. He turned it once in the light. Then he held it out to her again, and this time it was different, though she could not have said exactly how. This time it was not a command. "Put on the ring, Nora Bellini," he said. "Not because I tell you to, because you choose to." She reached out and took it from his hand. It was heavier than she expected, warm from his palm. She slid it onto her finger, and it fit as if it had been waiting for her, and something in the room shifted that neither of them named. "There," she said, "now we have a deal." "Now we have a war," he answered. "The Farron family gave us 3 days. When they learn there will be no bride from their house, they will not walk away quietly. They will come at us another way, and it will be uglier, and you are standing in the middle of it now with their key on your hand." "I know," Nora said. She looked down at the ring. "I have been standing in the middle of ugly things my whole life. At least this time I can see it coming." Matteo stood. He offered her his hand to rise, an old-fashioned gesture, and she looked at it, and then she took it, and let him help her to her feet as if she were exactly what the ring said she was. "There are things you need to know," he said, "about this house, about the people in it. Not everyone you have served these 2 years is what they seem. If the Farron family means to reach me, they will reach me through someone inside these walls, and that someone has already been paid, already been turned. I have not found them yet." He looked at her. "But you, Nora, you have spent 2 years being invisible in every room in this house. You have heard things I will never hear, because people speak freely in front of people they do not see." Nora felt something cold settle in her stomach, because he was right, and because she had heard things, small things she had never thought about, that now began to line up in a different and frightening order. "You want me to find your traitor," she said. "I want us to find our traitor," Matteo said. "You wear my ring now. Their knife is aimed at both of us." Outside, beyond the tall windows, the light was starting to fail, and the long shadows of the house stretched across the floor toward them. Somewhere in those shadows, Nora knew, a person was waiting who had already decided she should not be alive to wear the ring at all. She had chosen this. She had walked into it with her eyes open, exactly as she demanded. She turned the heavy gold band once around her finger and lifted her head. "Then we had better be faster than they are," she said. Matteo looked at her, and for the first time in 2 years, the head of the Lombardi family smiled a real smile. "Yes," he said, "we had better." And in the failing light, the maid who had said no stood beside the man everyone feared, wearing a ring that everyone wanted, at the exact center of a plot that everyone had thought she was too small to matter to. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. The knock came at Nora's door before dawn, 3 sharp raps, and she was awake and standing before the 4th would have landed. 2 years of service had trained her body to answer knocks. It took her a full second to remember she was not a servant anymore, that the ring on her finger had changed the rules, and that a knock before dawn in a house like this one was rarely good news. She opened the door. A young man stood there, one of Matteo's, with a face she recognized but a name she had never been given. His eyes went to the ring, then quickly away, as if looking at it too long was dangerous. "He wants you," the young man said. "Downstairs now, there's been a problem." She dressed fast in the clothes that had appeared in her new room the night before, better clothes than she had ever owned, and she followed him down the cold corridors of the sleeping house. The problem was in Matteo's study. She heard the voices before she reached the door, low and hard, and she slowed to listen, an old habit, and caught the tail of a sentence that made her stop. "Found the letter in her old room, in the maid's quarters, addressed to the Farron family in her hand." Nora's blood turned to ice. She pushed the door open. Matteo stood behind his desk. 3 of his men stood before it. On the desk lay a single sheet of paper, and even from across the room she could see it was covered in handwriting, and even from across the room she knew, with a sick lurch, that it was not her handwriting but was meant to look exactly like it. "There she is," said the oldest of the 3 men. His name was Carl, she remembered, a heavy gray man who had run the household guard since before she came. "The bride. Ask her about the letter, Matteo. Ask her who she really writes to at night." Matteo did not look at Carl. He looked at Nora, and his face gave nothing away, and she understood that this was the first test of the deal they had made not 12 hours ago. He had promised her the truth. Now she needed to know if he would believe hers. "I have never seen that letter," she said. She walked to the desk. She did not touch the paper. "May I read it?" "So you can pretend you didn't write it," Carl said. "So I can tell you why it's a forgery," Nora answered, and she picked it up. She read it fast. It was good work. Whoever had made it knew things, knew the shape of her letters, the way she crossed her sevens, the little slant that came from being taught to write by a left-handed woman long ago and far away. But it was too good, and that was the flaw. It was too careful, too even. Real handwriting hurried and slowed. This was copied slowly, letter by someone tracing. "I didn't write this," she said, "and I can prove it." "Of course you can," Carl said. "The date," she held it up and pointed. "This letter is dated 8 days ago. 8 days ago I was serving at the dinner for the merchants from the north. I carried plates for 6 hours. 40 people saw me. I never went near the maid's quarters that whole day, and I certainly never sat and wrote a careful letter to your enemies." She set it down. "Ask any of the 40. Ask the cook. Ask the men who guarded that dinner. I was in the great hall from morning until past midnight." The room went quiet. "Someone wanted this found," Nora went on, and now she was not speaking to Carl, she was speaking to Matteo, and she was speaking fast because the pieces were falling into place and she could see the shape of them. "Someone knew you would take a bride you couldn't be sure of. Someone planned for exactly this, for you to doubt me, to turn on me, to throw me out or worse. Get rid of the maid, and your real problem walks free. This letter isn't proof that I'm the traitor. It's proof that the traitor is afraid of me, afraid of what I might hear now that I stand beside you instead of behind you." Matteo picked up the letter. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Carl. "Who found it?" he asked. Carl hesitated just slightly, but Nora saw it. "One of the house men. He was searching the old quarters like you ordered." "I ordered no search of the maid's quarters," Matteo said. The silence changed shape. Carl's face did something complicated. "I must have misunderstood," he said. "I thought." "Which man found it?" "I'll have to check. It was early." In the confusion. "You brought me a letter that condemns my wife," Matteo said, and his voice had gone very soft, the soft that Nora was learning to fear on Nora's behalf. "And you cannot tell me which of my men found it, or why they were searching a place I never ordered searched. That is a great deal of confusion for one letter, Carl." Carl's mouth opened and closed. The two younger men beside him had gone very still, the way men go still when they suddenly realize they are standing next to the wrong person. "I have served your family for 30 years, Carl said, and there was something desperate under the words now. "Yes," Matteo said, "you have. Which is why I am going to give you a chance to explain in private, without these men, everything you know about how this letter came to be. And you are going to take that chance, Carl, because the other roads out of this room are much worse." He gestured. The two younger men took Carl by the arms gently, but they took him, and Carl went. And at the door he turned and looked back at Nora with an expression of pure hatred, and she understood that she had made an enemy who would not stop, whatever happened in the next hour. When the door closed, Matteo let out a breath. "You believed me," Nora said. "Before the date, before the proof, you'd already decided." "I told you I would not lie to you," Matteo said. "It would be a poor bargain if I demanded truth from you and gave you doubt in return." He set the letter down. "But I did not know if you were telling the truth. I knew you would give me a reason to believe you or a reason not to. And you did. The date. Fast and clean and checkable." He almost smiled. "You would have made a very good one of us in another life." "I've spent my whole life proving I didn't do things I didn't do," Nora said. "You learned to keep the dates straight." She looked at the letter. "Is Carl your traitor?" "No," Matteo shook his head slowly. "Carl is careless and Carl is proud and Carl does not like that I put a maid where a Farron daughter was meant to go. But Carl is not clever enough to forge that. Someone used him. Someone handed him that letter and a story about a search, knowing he disliked you enough not to ask questions. Carl is a tool. The hand that held the tool is still out there." Nora looked down at the paper, at the careful, traced, too perfect copy of her own handwriting. "Whoever made this," she said slowly, "has seen my writing up close for a long time. You don't copy a hand this well from one glance. They studied it. They had samples, old lists, old notes, things I wrote and threw away." She felt the cold return. "Someone has been collecting pieces of me for weeks, maybe longer. Before there was any ring, before there was any of this, someone was already building a way to destroy me." Matteo came around the desk and stood beside her, looking down at the letter with her. "Then they chose you before I did," he said quietly. "They knew somehow that I would reach for the safe option, the invisible one, the maid no one plans around." He looked at her. "Which means someone in this house knows how I think, knows me, well enough to predict me." "That's a very short list," Nora said. "Yes," Matteo said, "it is." Outside the window the sky had begun to lighten, gray turning to gold at the edges, and the house was waking up around them. Footsteps in the corridors, the distant sound of the kitchen, the ordinary noises of a place where dozens of people lived and worked, and any one of them might be the hand that traced her writing in the dark. Nora turned the ring on her finger. "Then we start with the short list," she said. "And we find out who knows you well enough to want you dead." Matteo looked at her. This maid who had said no. This woman wearing his family's ring. Standing in his study at dawn talking about hunting a killer as calmly as another woman might talk about the weather. "We," he said. "We," she agreed. "You said it yourself. Their knife is aimed at both of us now." She met his eyes. "So we find the hand that holds it together before it finds us first." And somewhere in the waking house, the person who had traced her letters in the dark heard that Carl had been taken, and understood that the maid had not broken as she was supposed to, and began, very quietly, to plan something far worse. The dinner was a performance, and both of them knew it. Matteo had let word spread through the careful channels of the house that he would host the heads of 3 allied families, and that his new wife would sit at his side. It was a message. To the Farron family, still waiting on their 3 days, it said the seat was taken and the door was closed. To the traitor inside the walls, it said the maid was not going anywhere. And to everyone watching, it said the Lombardi line was strong and settled and unafraid. Nora sat at the foot of the long table in a dark green gown that had appeared in her room that afternoon, the ring heavy on her hand, and she played the part of a woman who had always belonged in that chair. She had watched women like this for 2 years. She knew how they held their heads, how they let a small smile do the work of 100 words, how they listened to everything while appearing to listen to nothing. She had learned it the way a spy learns a language, and now she spoke it fluently. "Your wife is very quiet," said the man to Matteo's left, a lean gray figure named Otto who ran the river trade. He said it as if Nora could not hear him, which was exactly the kind of mistake she had built a life on. "My wife is very careful," Matteo said. "It is one of the things I value in her." "A careful woman is a rare thing," Otto agreed, and his eyes slid down the table to Nora, measuring. "Where does she come from? I don't know the Bellini name." "You wouldn't," Nora said pleasantly, before Matteo could answer. "My family was small and it is gone now. There's no one left to know. It makes me restful company, no relatives arriving to drink your wine and borrow your money." Otto laughed, surprised, and the table laughed with him, and Nora saw Matteo's shoulders ease a fraction. She had passed a small test. She could hold a lie lightly. She could turn a dangerous question into a joke and hand it back diffused. But the real test of the evening was not Otto. It came from the woman across the table, the wife of the 3rd family's head, a beautiful, sharp-eyed woman named Greta who had been watching Nora since the first course with an attention that never quite became rude, but never once relaxed. Greta had known the Lombardi household for years. Greta had visited when Matteo's mother was alive. And Greta, Nora understood, was the kind of woman who noticed servants, who remembered faces, who might well have looked past Nora at some dinner 2 years ago and filed her away without knowing it. The danger came when the plates were cleared. "Your ring is lovely," Greta said, leaning forward, her voice warm and her eyes cold. "May I see it? The Lombardi ring is famous. I have wanted a close look at it for 20 years. The table quieted just slightly. This was a test with rules Nora did not know. To refuse would be strange, an insult, a sign of something to hide. To offer it might mean taking it off, and Nora did not know if there was some custom, some right way, that she would fail and expose herself. She thought of 2 years of watching. She thought of how the real wives had done it, the ones who had grown up in these houses. She did not take off the ring. She simply turned her hand and held it out across the table, palm down. So the ring caught the candlelight, and let Greta look without letting Greta hold. Because a woman who was truly the lady of this house would never remove her ring at a dinner for a guest's curiosity. And Nora had seen exactly that 100 times without ever knowing she was learning it. "It's older than the house," Nora said. "Matteo tells me his great-grandmother wore it. I try not to think about that too much when I wash my hands. It's a great deal of history to be responsible for." Greta looked at the ring for a long moment. Then she looked at Nora's face, and something in her expression shifted, some suspicion setting down its weapons, at least for now. "You wear it well," Greta said, and sat back, and the dinner moved on. Under the table, Matteo's hand found Nora's knee for one brief second, A signal, "Well done," and then was gone. She kept her face smooth. But her heart was pounding because she had just realized how thin the ice was, how a single wrong gesture could have sent her through it, and how many more dinners like this stretched ahead. It was near the end of the evening, when the wine had loosened the men and the talk had turned to business, that Nora heard the thing that mattered. She had excused herself and stepped into the corridor for air, and two of the visiting men were there, out of sight around the corner, speaking low, and she did what she had always done. She became furniture. She stood in the shadow and she listened. "Doesn't know yet," one was saying. "The shipment on the Eastern Road. It's already gone. Taken 3 days ago, and Lombardi's men are still guarding an empty warehouse because no one's told them." How is that possible? He'd know. He knows everything that moves. He'd know if the man who reports the Eastern Road told him. And the man who reports the Eastern Road answers to someone else now. That's the whole point. It's not about stealing one shipment. It's about proving the rot goes deep. When Lombardi finds out he's been guarding nothing for 3 days, he'll know he can't trust his own eyes and ears. And a man who can't trust his own house is finished, the other finished, even before anyone raises a hand against him. They moved off. Nora stood very still in the dark until their footsteps faded, and then she walked back into the dinner on legs that felt strange, and she smiled, and she sat, and she waited an agony of an hour until the guests began to leave. When the last of them was gone and the great doors were shut, she told Matteo everything. He listened without moving. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "The man who reports the Eastern Road," he said at last, "is named Pieter. He has brought me true reports for 6 years. If what you heard is right, then 3 days ago he stopped. He stood and walked to the window. And it fits. It fits with the letter. It fits with Carl. Someone is not trying to strike me down in one blow. They are trying to hollow me out, turn my men one by one, fill my house with lies until I cannot tell what is true, and then when I trust nothing, take everything." He turned. "It is patient. It is clever. And it is exactly how I would do it if I wanted to end a man like me." "That short list just got shorter," Nora said quietly. "Whoever this is, they don't just know you, they think like you. They learned from you or beside you or against you for so long that they became your reflection." She looked at him. "Matteo, who in your life is your reflection? Who is the one person clever enough to be you?" He did not answer at once. And in the silence, she saw something cross his face that she had not seen before. Not anger, not fear, but grief, old and buried and suddenly disturbed. "There was one," he said, "once, a long time ago." He shook his head. "But he is dead. He has been dead for years." "Are you sure?" Nora asked. "Did you see it? Did you bury him yourself?" Matteo went very still. And in that stillness, Nora watched a certainty he had carried for years begin, slowly, terribly, to crack. Before he could answer, the doors burst open. The young man from that morning stood there, breathless, his face gray. "It's Carl," he said. "Carl is dead, in his room where we were holding him. The door was locked from outside and guarded all night, and he swallowed. There's a note left on his chest. It's addressed to her." He looked at Nora. "To the maid." Matteo crossed the room and took it from his hand. He read it. His face closed like a fist. "What does it say?" Nora asked. He handed it to her. 3 words in a hand she did not know, confident and clean. "You're next, Nora." She read it twice. The old cold rose in her, but under it, for the first time, something else rose too, not fear, but fury. She had spent her whole life being the person things were done to. The maid no one saw, the girl who lost everything, the furniture. And now someone in this house had killed a man behind a locked door just to send her a message, because she had become someone worth threatening. "He made a mistake," Nora said. Matteo looked at her. "A man is dead in a locked room, and you say he made a mistake." "Not Carl, him." She held up the note. Whoever wrote this, he's telling me I should be afraid, he's telling me I'm next, but you don't warn the person you're about to kill unless you want something from them first. He doesn't just want me dead, he wants me frightened. He wants me to run or to break or to make a mistake. She lowered the note. Which means I frighten him, which means I'm close to something, we both are. She looked at Matteo. The dead friend, the reflection. Tell me everything about him. Because I think you're about to tell me, he isn't dead at all. Matteo looked at her for a long, long moment. Then he sat down heavily, like a man setting down a weight he had carried too far. His name, he said, was Lucas, and I loved him like a brother, and I am the reason everyone believes he's dead. He looked up at her and the last of the certainty broke in his eyes, but I never saw the body either. Outside, the house was silent, and somewhere in that silence, a patient, clever man who thought exactly like Matteo Lombardi was smiling in the dark, because the game he had waited years to play was finally, truly beginning. And the maid who was supposed to be a small thing, a safe thing, an invisible thing, had just become the most dangerous piece on the board. Tell me about Lucas, Nora said. They were in the study, the door locked, the note that promised her death lying on the desk between them. It was long past midnight. The house had been searched twice and no killer had been found, because a killer who could reach a man in a locked, guarded room was not a killer who would be found by searching. Matteo poured 2 glasses of something dark and pushed one across to her. She left it untouched. We grew up together, he said. Not blood, but closer. My father took him in when we were boys. His own family was gone. Sound familiar? He glanced at her. You and he would have understood each other. 2 people with nothing behind them, learning to survive in a world that eats the ones who have no one to protect them. What happened to him? He was better than me, Matteo said simply. Faster, sharper, more patient. Everyone said so, and it was true, and it never bothered me because he was mine and I was his, and what did it matter which of us was better? We were going to run this family together. Him the mind, me the face. That was the plan. What changed? Matteo turned his glass in his hand. My father died, and a family like this cannot have 2 heads. It can only have one. Everyone knew it. Lucas knew it, and Lucas, he stopped. Lucas believed the one should be him, and he was probably right, but it was my name over the door. It was my blood. And when it came to a choice, the men chose blood over brilliance, the way they always do. So he left. So there was a fight. Matteo's voice went flat. Not with words, it went further than words. Men died, good men on both sides, because 2 brothers could not share a house, and at the end of it Lucas was gone. His men told me he was dead. They brought me his ring, his coat, blood. I believed them. I wanted to believe them because the other choice was to keep hunting the closest thing I ever had to a brother, and I did not have the stomach for it. He looked up. So I buried an empty box with his name on it, and I told myself the story everyone tells themselves, that it was over, that he was gone, that I could stop looking. And you never saw the body, Nora said softly. And I never saw the body. She was quiet for a moment, letting it settle. He's been gone how long? 7 years. 7 years. She turned it over. 7 years is a long time to be dead. It's also a long time to plan, to watch, to place people in a house one by one, patient as winter, to learn a maid's handwriting well enough to forge it, to turn a man who reports the Eastern Road, to wait for the exact moment when his brother would be pushed into a corner and reach for the nearest safe thing to save himself. She looked at Matteo. He knew about the Farron marriage. He knew it would force your hand. Maybe he even helped arrange it. And he knew you'd never marry their girl, so he waited to see who you'd choose instead, and the moment you chose me, he decided I had to be destroyed. Because I was the flaw in his plan, the piece he couldn't predict. Why you, though? Matteo said. You're a stranger to him. Why would a maid with no history be the one thing he can't account for? Because a plan this patient depends on knowing where everyone stands, Nora said slowly. She was working it out as she spoke. He turned your men because he knew their weaknesses, their greed, their pride, their fear. Carl disliked me, so Carl was easy to use against me. But me, he had nothing on me. No greed he could feed, no fear he could press, no family he could threaten because I already lost everyone. I'm the one person in this house he can't buy, can't scare, and can't predict. And a plan built on knowing everything can't stand one thing it doesn't know. She met his eyes. That's why he wants me gone. Not because I'm dangerous with a weapon. Because I'm dangerous with my eyes open, standing next to you, hearing what the invisible always hear. Mateo stared at her. You reason like him, he said. It's unsettling. Then we have a chance, Nora said. Because to catch a man who thinks like you need someone who thinks like him. And it seems you married one. Something broke the tension for a moment, almost a laugh, quickly gone. Then Mateo's face hardened again. If Lucas is alive, he said, and if he's inside my house, then everything I trust is poison. Any man could be his. Any order I give could be turned. I can't fight him the normal way, because the normal way runs through people, and my people are the very thing he's turned. Then don't fight him the normal way, Nora said. Fight him the way I've survived my whole life, from the bottom, from the shadows, from the places the powerful never look. She leaned forward. He turned your men because your men matter, because your men have power and access and things to lose. But the maids, the cooks, the boys who carry the wood and the girls who wash the floors, he never turned them because he thinks they don't count. The same reason you never noticed me for 2 years. The invisible people see everything and they're loyal to no one because no one is loyal to them. But I am one of them. They'll talk to me. They'll tell me things they'd never tell you. Because to them, you're the man who could end their lives with a word, and I'm just Nora who used to carry plates. Mateo was quiet, taking it in. You want to build a network out of servants, he said. I want to use the one that already exists, Nora said. There is a whole world under this house, Mateo. A whole set of eyes and ears you have never once thought about. They know who comes and goes at strange hours. They know which rooms have been used that shouldn't be. They know which of your men has been spending money he shouldn't have, and which one flinches at a name, and which one got a letter he burned in the kitchen fire instead of reading twice. Your brother built his plan by watching from above, learning your men. I can beat him by watching from below, where he never bothered to look, because he made the same mistake you did. He forgot the maids can see. For the first time that night, something like hope moved across Mateo's face. How long do you need? Give me 2 days, Nora said. 2 days to walk back through that door as one of them, to be Nora who carries plates again, and to listen. He killed Carl to frighten me. Let him think it worked. Let him think I'm hiding, shaken, small again. And while he's watching the frightened bride, I'll be down in the kitchens and the corridors, invisible, gathering every thread these people have been holding for years. She looked at him. And then we pull them all at once, and we find the door your brother's been walking through, and we shut it on his hand. Mateo looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached across the desk, not for the note but for her hand, the one that wore the ring. He held it. When I put this ring on your finger, he said, I told myself it meant nothing, an arrangement, a shield, a safe, small thing I could set down when the danger passed. His thumb moved once across the gold. I was lying, not to you, to myself. You were never the safe choice, Nora. You were the only real one. She should have pulled her hand back. That was the deal. Nothing he would not ask of a business partner. But she did not pull it back, and neither of them spoke about that, and the ring sat warm between their 2 hands in the lamplight. 2 days, she said quietly. Give me 2 days and I'll give you your brother. For the next 2 days, the household saw exactly what Lucas wanted them to see. The new bride, shaken and pale after a man died in a locked room with her name on the note. She kept to quiet corners. She spoke to no one important. She seemed, to anyone watching from above, to be exactly what she was supposed to be, frightened, folding, small. But below, in the world Lucas had never bothered to learn, Nora Bellini was doing the most dangerous work of her life. She went to the kitchens in the gray hours and sat with the cook, an old woman named Ruth who had fed this house for 40 years, and she did not ask questions. She just listened. And Ruth, who had never once been asked what she saw, told her everything. She sat with the girls who washed the floors and the boys who carried the wood. She found the laundry woman who had noticed that one of Mateo's most trusted men sent his shirts out with the collars stained a particular way, the way of a man who works with ink at night when he should be sleeping. She found the boy who had seen a hooded figure use a door in the old wing that was supposed to be sealed. She found the girl who had served wine to a man who spoke, just once, to himself, a name that no one in the house was supposed to know. Lucas. Thread by thread, from the bottom of the house where the powerful never looked, Nora built the shape of the thing. And on the evening of the second day, she walked back into Mateo's study, and she laid it all out, and at the center of it was a name. Not Lucas, but the man Lucas had been living as, the man who had walked in and out of this house for 2 years wearing a false face and a false name, the trusted advisor Mateo had welcomed and confided in and never once suspected. Victor, Nora said, the advisor you brought in 2 years ago, the clever one, the one who arrived, if you think about it, right around the time I did. She set down the last thread. He didn't send a spy into your house, Mateo. He walked in himself. Your brother has been standing beside you, whispering in your ear for 2 years. And the whole time he's been dead, he's been the man you trusted most. Mateo's face had gone white, and then slowly it changed, the shock hardening into something else, something Nora had not seen in him before. Not grief, not fear. Purpose. Then it ends, he said quietly. Tomorrow it ends. But even as he said it, neither of them knew that Victor, that Lucas, had been watching the maid go down into the kitchens too. That he had seen the frightened bride was a performance. That he had understood, 2 days too late, exactly how badly he had underestimated the one piece he could not predict. And that he had already decided the game would end that night, on his terms, not theirs. The lights went out across the whole house at once. Nora was halfway up the stairs to her room when the darkness fell, complete and sudden, and she stopped with one hand on the cold rail and understood in the space of a single heartbeat that this was it. Lucas had made his move. He had seen through the 2 days. He had cut the lights so his men, the turned ones, the ones Nora's threads had named but not yet removed, could move through the house without being seen, toward the 2 people who had finally found him. She did not scream. Screaming was for people who wanted to be found. She had spent her whole life being unfound. She let go of the rail and stepped sideways into the deeper dark of the corridor and became, one more time, the thing she had always been. Furniture, a shadow, nothing. Footsteps came up the stairs, quick and certain, men who knew the house. She pressed herself flat and let them pass, 3 of them, moving toward Mateo's rooms, and she counted them and marked their direction, and then she went the other way down, toward the kitchens, toward the world below where she was strong and they were blind. Because Lucas had made one mistake, the same mistake twice. He had cut the light to blind the master of the house and his men, but the people below did not need the light. Ruth had cooked in the dark of pre-dawn kitchens for 40 years. The boys knew every stair by the feel of it. The girls could find any room in the house with their eyes shut because they had cleaned every one of them 1,000 times. Lucas had turned off the light for the powerful. He had forgotten again that the powerless lived in the dark already. Nora reached the kitchen. Ruth was there, a shape against the banked orange glow of the great stove, calm as a stone. "He's come then," Ruth said. "He's come." Nora's voice was low and fast. "His men are in the house. They're moving on Mateo. I need every pair of hands and eyes that's ever been ignored in this house, and I need them now, and I need them silent." Ruth looked at her for a long moment in the dim orange light. 40 years, the old woman said. "I've watched men with weapons walk through my kitchen like I wasn't here. Ordering, taking, never once seeing my face." She reached under the great table and drew out a long, heavy iron key ring, and Nora understood that the cook of a house this size held the keys to every door in it, every passage, every forgotten stair. Let's show them what the invisible can do. What happened next, the men above never fully understood. They moved through the dark house hunting Matteo, and the house turned against them. Doors they expected to be open were locked from the other side. Passages they thought were sealed open for people they never saw. A man reaching for a stair rail found it slick with cooking fat and went down hard. Another, feeling his way along a wall, found the wall was not where the wall should be, because a heavy cabinet had been silently rolled across the corridor by 4 kitchen boys who could move furniture in the dark without a sound. One by one, Lucas's turned men found themselves lost in a house they thought they owned, herded by hands they could not see toward rooms they did not choose, where they were shut in and locked and left. Nora moved through it all like a fish through water, giving no orders above a whisper, and the below world of the house closed around Lucas's men like a fist made of shadows. She found Matteo in his study. He was not hiding. He stood in the dark with his back to the wall and a hard readiness in every line of him, and when the door opened he was already moving, and she barely got out "It's me" before he stopped. "They're taking the house," he said. "No," Nora said. "We are. Your men are turned, but the house isn't your men. The house is the people underneath, and they're mine now, and they're taking his men apart in the dark one by one. Come with me. There's only one place he'll be, the old wing, the sealed door. He needs somewhere he controls, somewhere private, somewhere he can finish this his own way. He's been living inside your walls as Victor, but tonight he wants to end it as Lucas, face to face, because that's what this was always about. Not power, you. He wants you to know it was him. He can't help it. He needs you to see." Matteo looked at her in the dark. "You really do think like him," he said. "Then let's use it," Nora said, "before he uses it on us." They went through the below house, through the passages Ruth's keys had opened, and they came up into the old wing through a door that Lucas believed only he knew, and that was Nora's last thread pulling tight. Because the boy who carried the wood had seen the hooded figure use it, and had told the maid who used to carry plates, and now that small forgotten fact opened the one door Lucas thought was his alone. He was waiting in a cold room at the end of the old wing, one lamp lit, and he was not surprised to see Matteo. But he was surprised to see Nora, and that surprise was the whole game, right there on his face. "Brother," Lucas said. He was a lean man with clever eyes, and now that Nora knew, she could not believe she had ever not seen it, the way he thought like Matteo, moved like Matteo, wore the same stillness. "You found me, or rather," his gaze moved to Nora and hardened. "She did. The maid, the piece I couldn't place. I have spent 2 years building something perfect, and it came apart because a woman who carries plates could not be bought or frightened. Do you know how rare that is? I nearly admire it." "Then admire this," Nora said. "It's over. Your men are locked in rooms all over this house, put there by people you never once looked at. The Eastern Road shipment we know. The letter we know. Carl we know. Every thread you spun we pulled. You built your whole plan on the idea that the small people don't count." She stepped forward, "and the small people just took your house apart around you in the dark." Lucas's clever eyes moved from her to Matteo and back, calculating, and Nora watched him understand at last and completely that he had lost, not to his brother's strength, which he had spent 7 years learning to beat, but to the one thing he had never bothered to study. "7 years," Matteo said quietly. "7 years I mourned you. I buried an empty box. I told myself you were gone so I could stop hunting you because I could not bear to be the man who hunted his own brother. And all that time you were beside me, whispering, waiting, turning my house into a weapon to use against me." His voice was steady, but Nora heard the grief under it, old and deep. "Why like this, Lucas? You wanted the family. You could have fought me for it in the open, the way you were born to. Why the years of lies? Why become a ghost?" "Because you took everything," Lucas said, and for the first time the cleverness cracked and something raw showed through. "The name, the house, the men, all of it went to you for the one thing I could never earn, your blood. I was better, Matteo, we both know it. And better wasn't enough because I wasn't born to the right father. So I decided if I couldn't beat you with what I was, I'd beat you with what you were. I'd become you. Live inside your life. Learn every part of it. And then take it apart so completely that when you fell, you'd fall knowing the man who did it was the brother you buried. He was breathing hard now. It was perfect. It was going to be perfect. It was never going to be perfect, Nora said, and her voice was gentler than she expected because she understood him, this man who had lost everything and let the loss turn to poison. She had stood at that same edge once. She had chosen not to fall. You built a plan with no room for the people you didn't count. That's not brilliance, Lucas. That's the same blindness that made you think being better than your brother should have been enough. You never learned the one thing that would have saved you. Everyone counts. The maid counts. The cook counts. The boy who carries the wood counts. You forgot that, and it cost you everything twice. Lucas looked at her for a long moment, and whatever he saw in her face, the understanding, maybe, the recognition of something in himself, seemed to take the last of the fight out of him. What happens now, he said. It was not quite a question. Matteo was silent for a long time. Nora watched him and saw the choice moving in him, the terrible weight of it. A man like Matteo had one answer for a threat like this. Everyone in the house expected that answer. It was the only language men in his world spoke. Now, Matteo said slowly, you leave, tonight, and you never come back, and you are dead to this house in truth, the way you have been in name for 7 years. He set his jaw. I will not be the man who ends his own brother. You wanted me to become you. This is the one place I won't. You would have finished me without a second thought. I know that. But I would rather be the fool who let his brother walk away than the man who buried him with his own hands. Go, Lucas, while the door is open, before I remember all the reasons I shouldn't let you. Lucas stared at him. Of everything that might have happened in that cold room, this was the one thing he had not planned for, and Nora saw it undo him more completely than any weapon could have. Mercy, from the brother he had spent 7 years learning to destroy. He went to the door. At it he stopped and looked back, not at Matteo but at Nora. He's lucky, Lucas said. The maid who counts everyone, he doesn't deserve you. Neither of us was ever going to deserve someone like you. And then he was gone, into the dark of the house that had defeated him, out through some exit only he still knew, and the room was quiet. Nora let out a breath she felt she had been holding for 5 days. You let him go, she said. You wanted me to, Matteo said. I saw it on your face. I did, she looked at him. Because you'd never have forgiven yourself for the other thing. And a house should be led by a man who can carry mercy, not just fear. You just became a different kind of leader tonight, Matteo. A better one. The men below will know by morning that the master let his brother live. That's a different kind of strength than they've ever seen from this family. It'll change everything. The lights came back slowly, the boys below finding the cut wires and mending them, and the house came up out of the dark room by room, and everywhere the light returned it showed the same thing. Lucas's turned men, locked away, and the ignored people of the below house standing guard over them, ordinary and unremarkable and utterly victorious. In the gray light of the next dawn, Matteo and Nora stood again in the great dining hall where it had all begun, where an envoy had once slammed down a glass, and a boss had once commanded a maid to wear his ring. Matteo took the ring gently from her finger. Nora let him, though something in her chest tightened at it because she thought this was the end. The danger was past, the deal was done, and now she would take the money and leave clean, exactly as she had demanded. Then he held it out to her again, on his open palm, the way he had that first night. But everything else was different. The first time I held this out to you, Matteo said, it was a command. I told you to wear it, and you said no in front of my men and an enemy because you would not walk into a lie with your eyes shut. He swallowed. The second time I told you to choose it and you did, but it was still an arrangement, a shield, a thing we would set down when the danger passed. The danger has passed now, Nora. The deal is done. You've more than earned your freedom. You can take it and go, and no one will ever trouble you again. I promised you that, and I'll keep it." He held the ring a little closer. "But I'm asking you something else instead. Not commanding, not arranging, asking." His voice was not quite steady. "Stay, not as a shield or a part or a piece in a game. As my wife truly, because in 5 days you have shown me more truth and more courage and more worth than I have seen in a lifetime of people who were afraid of me. You are the only person who ever told me no. The only one who ever saw me instead of fearing me. I don't want to set this ring down when the danger passes. I want you to wear it because you want to. That's all, that's everything. What's your answer?" The hall was empty. There was no room full of men to shock this time. No envoy, no audience. Just the two of them and the ring and the gray light of morning. And Nora Bellini, who had lost everything a person could lose, who had spent her whole life invisible, who had said no once and changed the course of a war, looked at the man everyone feared and gave the answer that would, when the house heard it, shock every single one of them all over again. She did not take the ring from his hand. Instead, she reached up and took his face in both her hands and kissed him, the maid kissing the boss, the invisible woman claiming the powerful man, choosing him openly and completely and entirely on her own terms, as an equal, as the one person in the world who had never once been afraid. And when she finally pulled back, she took the ring from his palm and slid it onto her own finger herself, because she would not be given it, not even now. She would take it. That was the whole difference, and it was everything. "That's my answer," she said. "Yes, but I put it on myself. I always will. Remember that, and we'll do very well, you and I." Matteo Lombardi, who had commanded a maid to wear his ring and watched her refuse, who had ruled a house through fear and just learned to lead through something better, looked at the woman who had walked into his war invisible and walked out of it indispensable, and he laughed. A real, whole, astonished laugh, the sound of a man who has finally found the one thing he never thought to want. "Yes," he said. "I imagine we will." Outside, the sun cleared the eastern hills at last, and light poured through the tall windows into the great hall, and it fell on the two of them standing there, equal at last, and on the heavy gold ring that no one had given her and that she had taken for herself, and the long night was over, and whatever came next, they would meet it the same way they had met all of this, with their eyes wide open. Together,